ching. I hope you guys have your beverages warm, hot, cold. I do not discriminate. Right now, I am currently sipping on some wine. It is 5 o'clock somewhere, so don't judge me. So, today I wanted to have a discussion about something that I feel like is more common now. I'm starting to see it pop up a lot more, and a lot of women are having discussions about this, and that is PCOS, which is basically short for polycystic ovary syndrome. Now, before I really go into my particular journey of this, I want to mention that I am very green when it comes to the knowledge, and I am not a beacon of answers here. But I definitely wanted to throw my hat in the ring when it comes to discussing this, because I feel like there is so much stigma around it. And I just feel like for our male counterparts, this discussion would be good to have so that they can understand that it's more than what it seems and what meets the eye. So with that being said, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about my journey. If you're listening to this and you've been on this journey, please feel free to leave tips of how you deal with PCOS, and just kind of how you navigate different things, whether it be the diet, whether it be the thought process behind it, and really trying to understand what it is, and even dealing with fertility. Have you had issues with fertility? What does that look like for you? How do you kind of navigate that? Were there any results? What were they, if there were, and things like that? Because I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people listening to this who can either benefit from the information or can add to it. So for me, I feel like I've always been relatively slim, which I still am, but I feel like my first experience, I guess, with something that's different is my body hair and how quickly it grows back. I know people who can shave their legs literally like once every 6 months. I know people who don't really have to shave, and I always just felt like I was just hairier than the rest. And so I didn't realize that there was something that could have been potentially causing it. I just felt like I just kind of drew the short stick, because I know that, there's some people that have more body hair than others, and I just felt like I just drew the short stick. I never really had PCOS on my radar until I was older and I saw my doctor. But I would have moments, just putting a pin in that for a second, because I would have moments where I would have extremely irregular periods to the point that my irregular periods were regular. And I did have moments where it was hard to plan things because I just didn't know what week that period was coming. And, I would have a few months, where it would be fairly consistent, fairly regular. But for the majority of my life, it was fairly irregular. I mean, it would probably be within the same week. But that whole getting it on a Sunday and it's starting a whole new week in general is real for me. It's so crazy that I can get it on the 7th of a month, and the month before the 7th is ending one week, and then the month after the 7th is beginning a whole new week. So when that happens, instead of me getting it between like the 5th or the 7th, which would be from the previous months, I'm now getting it potentially between the 7th and the 10th, which puts me in a completely different week bracket. So everything gets thrown off. That was so regular for me. So now jumping back to me going to my doctor. So I went to my doctor's, and I used to complain heavily about my cramps. My cramps were a disaster. There was nothing that I can take for long periods of time that would help my cramps. I used to do Tylenol. That worked for a while, then that stopped working. Then I did extra strength. Didn't do anything. Then I moved on to Advil. It was cool for a minute, then it stopped. Then I did extra strength. Then I did Midol. Then I did Maxidol. Then I had to go to a doctor because at this time, when I was going through all of these different medications, I didn't have my official family doctor that I have now. So I had to go to like a walk-in doctor, and they gave me a prescription. That prescription worked for literally 3 months, and they gave me a prescription to basically last me the year. So I had like, I think she gave me about 12 of them to take once per month, because it was supposed to be just that powerful, where once I take it, I will not need it for the rest of the period. So that was how it was for the first couple months. And then after that, it was just basically useless. So I was going nuts. Then I finally got Aleve. So Aleve was working for a while. And there was a month where I took it and it worked, but then I started to notice I was getting into that point where it was going to stop working. So I literally had that month, but the following month I needed to find something different. So I started to feel a little uncomfortable, and at this time I was going to school. So I'm at school and I'm like, okay, cool, everything is fine. I'm trying to plan it out because I had a morning class, and usually around that time my period would start more like in the early afternoon. So I felt like I had time. Okay, if it starts, then I'll be home and this and this and this. Nope. In true irregular fashion, it comes that morning. I don't have my medication. So now I'm freaking out because I don't know if you guys go through this, but you will feel okay for the most part for the day. And then once you go into the washroom and you physically see that your period has started, for some reason, that's the moment you really start to feel the cramps. The cramps just start rushing in. The moment you physically see, okay, yes, my period started, all of a sudden you're feeling it. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm at school, and I think I probably had one class left, and then I was cool to go home. And so I'm freaking out in my mind because I'm like, I know how bad my cramps can get. It takes me about an hour and a half to get home. But if I leave, then I can stop, get my medication, and then I'm going to be on the bus, and that will give me that 20-minute grace period that I need for it to work. So I'm thinking, okay, you know what? I'm going to just go. And so one of my classmates walked in, and she started to see that I was uncomfortable. Like, she seen it from the corner of her eye, but she really like clocked it because I was like trying to breathe and everything. So she asked me if I was okay. And I told her like, no, my stomach's hurting me. I'm feeling cramps and whatever. So this was a mature woman. So she's like, okay, did your period start or whatever? She just asked me straight up. And I was just like, around those times, I was like, it's weird because she's a woman, but I still felt weird talking to her about my period. So I was like, yeah. So she goes, okay, I have something for you. This woman gave me Aleve liquid gels. So I took that. I went into class. She said, sit down for 30 minutes. If you don't feel better, then go home, and I would suggest you to really go see somebody. So I went to the class. I sat down. Within like 15 minutes, I felt nothing. That happened back in 2013, and I still use Aleve liquid gels to this day. I cannot believe I saw them. But in my mind, I felt like, well, if that's not working and that's not working, this isn't going to work. Whole time, that's all I needed. Now, There are points where I need more than one, but it's actually done me pretty well. But there's a trick to it. And the trick essentially is the moment I see that my period started, I need to go get me a little treat, a little something to munch on. Take the Aleve with I do about a cup and a half of water because sometimes I feel like the cup is not enough. Sit there for 20 minutes and I'm golden. And so now I go to my doctor and I kind of talked to her about this, and she was kind of like, okay, let me look at your ovaries. So I was like, okay, normal stuff. But now I'm like, okay, now I'm going to be doing things because this is now my doctor. So now what haven't I done? Okay, cool. We're going to get those all done. So that's essentially what it was. It was like, you've never checked your ovaries. You're kind of at that age now where you need to start paying attention. I'm going to send you to go get those things looked at. So I got an ultrasound. So she calls me and she's like, you need to come in. So me, I do not like mystery to that degree. I don't like mystery in that fashion. Now I'm sitting here freaking out. What did she find on my ovaries? My mind went immediately to ovarian cancer. Immediately. Because in my mind, there was nothing else that could be wrong with my ovaries. So I'm freaking. So I finally go see her and she's like, well, you have really small cysts on your ovaries. And so then she starts asking me questions like, okay, do you get a lot of body hair? And I was just like, yeah. I was a little uncomfortable, but I mean, she's a professional. So I was like, okay, cool. And then she's like, okay, and how are your periods? And I'm like, oh, they're a little bit irregular. So then she's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to do some blood work because I feel like you might have PCOS. And I was like, what's that? And so she basically told me that it's a condition where essentially my body is producing more male hormones than it should. And so I was like, okay, so am I gonna die? I didn't know, right? So I'm like, okay, is this a life-threatening thing? She goes, no. It's really just something that can affect your periods and your ability to conceive. I'm like, okay, that's fun because now in my mind, I'm gonna have problems having kids. So she basically was like, the only thing that she feels like it's holding her back from officially diagnosing me with it is the fact that I'm petite, and one of the symptoms for PCOS is weight gain, especially around your stomach area, and I wasn't displaying that. So she said there's a few things that kind of put me in that box, and because I really wasn't checking that box, she can't say for sure that I have it. So it's like, okay. So she goes and she does whatever test that she needs to do. And then she said, oh, all tests come back normal. So I was like, oh, okay. So now in my mind, I don't have it. Because I feel like if I had it, then she would have said blah, blah, blah. She has PCOS. Or she would have done the same thing where she's telling me to come into her office. And then she would tell me. And then she would give me some form of instructions. But she didn't do that. So I let her go for years. I just chucked it to, I'm a hairy chick. And my period is just a little, funky. And okay, now I have cysts on my ovaries. So that's fun. So I let that go for years, and I just kind of went with the thoughts that I was given. And then I went to the doctors for some form of testing, and so she gave me a paper, and that paper was for me to give to the technician. And on that paper, it shows my name, my age, but then beside it there was a note, and then it said, it would say, for example, 30-year-old female with PCOS. And I was like, excuse me? So I do have this? So I remember when I saw that paper and I did all the tests and stuff, she called me with the results, because around this time, it was like COVID. So this just goes to show how much years I left it alone, because she became my doctor in 2014. And we had this PCOS conversation probably in about 2015. So between 2015 and 2020, I was just like, yo, my period's a little weird and I'm just hairy. So when I got that paper, she called me and she's like, yeah, your results, normal. So I'm like, okay, so as you're here on the phone, I saw on the paper that, it shows my age and that I have PCOS. So do I have PCOS? And she goes, you know what? Yes, based on like your periods and this and that and chromosomes, and she was going into a whole bunch of medical jargon. Yes, you do have PCOS. So now I'm concerned, because I knew that one of the symptoms of PCOS is problems with fertility. So I expressed that concern because I want to be a mom one day. And so she's like, how she wants to do some testing, but she doesn't feel like I should have anything to fear. Worst case scenario, I have to have a conversation with her first so that she can refer me to a fertility doctor. And so she did that test or whatever, and it came back normal. But what she said was, just to be safe, when you're ready to conceive, let me know so that I can refer you to a fertility doctor. Because I'm just going to be honest, it's not going to be easy, or it may not be easy. Like, yeah, you can probably do it on your own, but you might have problems. And one of the problems that she was referring to was, I can get pregnant on my own, but I can potentially keep having miscarriages. It may or may not, but even the may is very, very nervousing to me, because I don't necessarily know if I would be able to emotionally handle having a miscarriage. So when she said that, in my mind, again, because I am extra, I'm mentally extra. So in my mind, I can't have kids. So I remember after having that conversation with her, I had a conversation with my ex, because at the time we were cordial. Like, we were together so much years ago and we broke up, and so we went through dealing with like the breakup, and I don't really have no feelings for him, so like I don't mind being cordial. We're not friends, but like we're cordial, where I can say hello and then he would come back and we would have like a normal conversation. So I remember going to him and I was like really kind of irritated, because we had a little moment when we were together, and there was a am I, aren't I kind of thing. And so, Alexa, stop. I don't know why my Alexa's going off. My apologies for that. We had a am I not kind of moment, and so he wasn't supportive and it was shitty. So I remember like I was so tunnel vision, because now I felt like, you piece of S word, you were so rude to me about this and that, and now I might not be able to have kids. I hope you're happy. You effing suck. And he was just kind of like, I don't know what's happening here, because I thought we spoke about this and I thought we were cool, which we did. We did have a conversation about it ever so briefly, but this time I really went deep into it. This is how I felt in that moment. This is how it relates to how I feel now. This is what happened in that moment. May not happen in this moment. Like, I was really, really deep. Like, at first I was like, rah, rah, rah. But then after he's kind of like, okay, I don't know, because I thought we had this conversation. Then I brought myself down, and then I had a more, reasonable conversation as to why I felt the way I felt. That was a very tough, I think that was probably the hardest conversation that I had, because I felt like in that moment, I wasn't, but I felt like in that moment, I just didn't have any form of support. I didn't know where to go, because I don't know anybody in my personal life that has PCOS and that dealt with potential fertility issues, because everybody that I know that has kids, I mean, to be fair, they might have gone through some stuff behind the scenes, but everybody that I know that has kids, it wasn't an issue. Granted, they had them a little younger than how old I was at the time I heard this news, but no issue. So I just felt like there's nobody that would understand. So I went back to a moment where I had a small inkling that I might have been pregnant, and I went back to the person who I would have went through that situation with. And so, that was really difficult for me. So then I started to do research, and then I realized that excess body hair is a symptom of PCOS and my irregular period. So I felt like I unlocked some kind of cheat code, because now when I'm around, this is something that I would bring into my future relationships, because now it's not going to be ill, yucky. I would actually be a person to sit a man down, which I have. Because the second I found out that that's what this is, I sat down, my partner, and I said, listen, this is what I have. And when I say partner, I don't mean like relationship partner. Anyways, that goes without saying, but So, and I basically was like, listen, like, this is what's happening. Because I feel like if you can't be honest with the person that you're sleeping with about what's going on with your body, you shouldn't be sleeping with that person. And that can be dealing with something like this, or something with your period. And I mean, you don't have to be super graphic, but it's like, I'm having cramps. Some people can't have conversations like that with men. Oh my gosh, I'm having cramps. Like, yo, keep that to yourself. You should not be sleeping. If you can't have those kind of conversations, you shouldn't be sleeping with a person. That's just my truth. So like, talking about that, to me, I felt like was important, because I feel like they need to understand the type of machinery that they're handling, so to speak. So I went and I had that conversation, and I sent them material to read. Same material that I read, I sent it to them. Yo, read this, look through this, understand this. So when I'm saying X, Y, and Z, it's linked to X, Y, and Z. And I feel like the more that I know, the more I will educate people who are affected by it. More so me, but again, a partner. Because I think that it's important for them to understand that this ain't no play. And so now on my Instagram, I have a lot of content that is related to PCOS. It kind of upgraded my algorithm. So now I'm seeing things like diets. Now I'm seeing things like working out. And that's one of the reasons why I want to maintain a healthy lifestyle, because I feel like making these changes can maybe help regulate my period. It may still be a little off, but I think it'll help with regulating that. The body hair, I think, is just a done deal. I can't do nothing about that. And then, but it can also help me with maintaining my weight, or if I do have weight gain in the future, I will have the strength to, work with it. If I feel like it's something I want to keep, I can still maintain it in a healthy manner and things of that sort. So that's my experience with PCOS. I am still learning. If you do, again, like I mentioned in the beginning, have any tips of how you deal with it, or, you need tips, leave them in the comments, and hopefully as I continue to get educated, I can come back and do another episode like this with a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more education and things like that. And just know that you are not alone in this journey if you are dealing with PCOS, and there are people out there who's willing to listen. There are people out there who understand. And, this is just a little bit of a different obstacle for us. But like every other obstacle, we will get through it. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, cheers to a new episode.